Sirens, Slammers, and Service, a podcast for female first responders by female first responders. My name is Nikki Cluche, and I will be your host. As a former correctional officer in Alberta for almost 2 decades and the founder of Blue Line Fitness Testing, which provides law enforcement fitness testing and first responder wellness workshops, I started this podcast as a way for female first responders to share the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of their daily work. I want to showcase the unique perspectives, skill sets, and personalities that women bring to a first responder career and share their stories. So get ready to laugh your ass off, learn a whole bunch, and be inspired by some pretty badass women. Let's go. Hey guys, wanted to pop on here before we got into this next episode and let you know about a couple new rad ideas that we have for the podcast. So, the first one is we have a survey up, and I would love to know what you guys think about the show. I'd love your feedback. I'd love your ideas for the next season. And I'd just love to know what you like and what you dislike about the podcast. And I'm going to sweeten the deal with a $50 gift card randomly drawn from everybody that completes the survey. The survey is going to be in the show notes of all of our shows. So no matter what time you start listening to the podcast at, you'll get a chance to win that gift certificate. The second thing that we're bringing in now is the ability for you guys to leave us a voicemail. You guys can actually call into the show, leave us a voicemail, let us know what you think about the show. If you have a funny story you'd like to share from your time as a first responder, I would love those and showcase those on the show as well. So make sure you guys check out that voicemail feature. It's going to be in the show notes, and check out the survey. Make sure that you get that chance to win that gift certificate. And now let's get back to what we all came here for, and that's another badass female first responder. Welcome back, guys. Today, it's our last episode of season 4. I cannot freaking believe it, you guys. The season has been lit. It has been amazing. I've had some fantastic guests, and I think I saved the best for last. I have been trying to get this guest on the show for the last couple months. We've had schedule conflicts. We've had time changes. She's been called into emergency meetings with her chief. It's just been crazy. But today, I am joined by Kaleigh Paddon of the Surrey Police. She's been with Surrey Police for 2.5 years, and previous to that, she spent 19 years with the RCMP, all out of Surrey. Her current role now is the sergeant in charge of officer wellness, and she was recently awarded the top 40 under 40 by the International Chiefs of Police. Damn, girl, this girl is rad. Welcome, Kaleigh. How are you today?
Thank you so much. That was quite the intro. Thank you so much for having me. I just need a hype squad like that to follow me around all the time.
Right? Just be like, ooty, oot, ooty, oot. Yeah, little pom-poms behind you. I love it. So I will say, so I found you, stalked you on LinkedIn. 100% I stalked you on LinkedIn. I saw the post about you being awarded this top 40 under 40 and was like, I need this girl on my show. Like, I need this girl on my show. I freaking love seeing women, not only women that just like rock, but young females coming in, absolutely dominating in their careers, and then being recognized for it, which is something that usually doesn't happen. So when I saw that, I was just jumped on it, and I said, I had to have you. I have to have you on the show. I have to talk to you. So I want you just to basically fill our listeners in. You've got 19 years basically with the RCMP, and then 2.5 years now with Surrey, and you're just killing it out there. How did you get into this? What led you into a career in policing?
Yeah, it's been the thing about the award recently, I think for me was just that it's been such a rocky road and up and down and all around. I'll tell you a little bit about it. So being recognized was really important just because there are so many dark moments in this career or hard moments that it was just nice to enjoy a positive. So appreciate the recognition and you stalking me and following me so we can have a chat. There's nothing better than girls in this realm or women in this realm who are hyping each other up, because I think we've not been great at that. So I appreciate it for sure. Yeah, I right out of high school, I'll have to give props to my sister-in-law here, who's a Mountie. We work just across the street from each other here. She's a Mountie at Surrey Detachment. She's been in my life for a very, very long time, and she's been an incredible influence on me. She's 6 years older than I am, and I remember watching her depot video and thinking, what an incredible experience. I always wanted to be part of something big and belong, and I wanted to be challenged. I've always been an athlete. I've always been competitive. I grew up with 2 older brothers. So I saw it and I thought, well, that is an experience. I remember watching them march and wearing the red serge. So I was young at the time, but I remember having a conversation with her. Her name is Leah, and her saying, you know what, you should apply because you never know what will happen. Sometimes people get deferred, or sometimes it takes a little bit. So I thought, you know what, in the very least, if I apply as soon as I turn 19, as soon as you can, this was back in 2005, as soon as I can, I'll know about the process. I'll understand what it looks like. So I did that. And we talked a little bit about swearing at the beginning. I remember the very first time she took me down to the YMCA downtown to run my pair to see what my time would be. I had no idea. I mean, I thought I was fit, but I'm very small. I'm 5'2". And at the time I probably weighed about 105 pounds. So I went and I did my pair, and the guy told me at the end that I'd done it in 3:53, and I thought he said 4:53. So I'm in this gym with all these aspiring cops, and I let out a giant F bomb, just like, fuck. Like, I just scream at the top of my lungs and storm out. She comes out. She's like, what is your problem? Like, I was like, I'm so pissed off at myself that she's like, no, he said 3:50. I was like, oh, well, then I'll swear again. But like, as a little bit of a pat on my own back there. So
Yes.
I remember that process so well and the importance of it. I know, you know, but just having a great guide and mentor through that program and or through that start. So that was kind of my start into it. And I remember, sure enough, I was in the criminology program, University of the Fraser Valley. Again, I was only 19, and I made the decision to switch from English major. I wanted to be a journalist to criminology. And I remember my criminology teacher telling me, you're way too young. I appreciate you applying, but you're just not going to get in this time. And about a month later, I quit in the middle of my semester to go to Depot. And here we are all these years later. So I honestly, my Depot experience was great. I mean, I was applied when I was 19 years old. I had no mortgage, no kids at home, no nothing. So I could go and I could concentrate on being the best I could be. I graduated out of Depot and I got my very first choice, which was Surrey Detachment. I spent the first about 13 years of my career frontline policing at Surrey Detachment. So I did general duty in what we call FLIST or GIS. So it's like a major crime unit, but they're attached to the watch. So I did my 2 days, 2 nights, and I loved every minute of it. It's just it was such hard work, and I loved it. The best memories of my career are through that time, just being frontline
Yeah.
on the road, working those hard files. It was incredible.
Were you from BC? Like, is that why you want to go
Yeah.
back?
So
Okay.
my family, I grew up in Chilliwack. My family is still in the Lower Mainland. So I was young and I wanted to come back home. My sister sister-in-law was also working at Surrey Detachment. So I thought what a cool experience that would be. My brothers were also local in Chilliwack and Surrey. So I thought what a cool experience that would be to be close back to family. And I was just lucky enough that I lucked out and I came back to the Lower Mainland. It was just those first years in my career. Looking back, there's some things I probably would have changed in the way I cared about myself and took care of, the people around me. But incredible first start to my career, and then all of a sudden the shift work didn't work so well for my family. I have 2 young children, married a fellow Mountie, so life became really hectic really quick with 2 shift workers and 2 babies. So I thought I would switch to working some better hours, and I went to a major crime unit at Green Timbers, which is still in Surrey. So stayed home base and but working not at a detachment, not frontline anymore. I did a few years there doing some unsolved homicides, and then I went ahead and I went to CFSU, which is our gang unit here. And I did the last portion of my career here or there. I was working there, and while I was working there, I got my personal training certification. I got my nutrition certification. That's always kind of been my passion, and I did it sort of off the side of my desk. I loved helping, getting everybody involved in group sports and getting the team to go down for things like that. And I remember this job came up at Surrey Police, and my husband sent it to me, and it was to be the sergeant in charge of all the programming for the wellness of the sworn and civilian members, anything that has to do with physical or mental well-being. And I thought, isn't that just everything amazing
Perfect.
wrapped into one? Exactly. Perfect. I
Yeah.
get to help the people around me still. I get to help my community, but I get to make sure that the police officers are healthy and safe doing it. And so I thought, I don't know what the chances are. I interviewed, and that was July of 2021. and I've been working here very happily ever since.
That's awesome. It like I know so I say this all the time and I've said it in multiple episodes, but like the universe just really directs you places, and as long as you are open to the possibility, right? Like so even going back to your very starting at 19, open to the possibility of like, yeah, cool, if it happens, wicked. If it doesn't, I'm in school, we'll just see where this goes, right? And then being open to the possibility that like, hey, I've done this certification, I've done this work, I'm now I have these skills and this knowledge. Let's see, let's try, right? Let's be open to the possibility. And the universe just delivers. It goes like, yes, here you go, right? But we often get in our own way for that, I feel. And I mean, I did it for many years. The universe was like, do not do this, and I was like, well, actually, hold my beer while I do it more times than I should have, right? Like I was just like, yes, I don't care what you're saying, universe, I'm going to keep working at this even though you're telling me it's wrong. I'm just going to keep pushing. So I love that you kind of just were open to it and said, let's give her a go. Let's see what happens. And it worked out and it's perfect. So phenomenal. I love this. I just want to cycle back a little bit because you mentioned that you were part of the gang unit in Surrey. And just because I know there's a lot of gangs in Surrey, which is crazy because you think to yourself, what? But can you give me a little bit more on that? A little bit like kind of just what that time was like, what your work was like in that gang unit, and then I really want to delve more back into what you're doing now currently.
You bet. Yeah, so I was really lucky to have the opportunity to go to CFSCU. So in BC, you're right. There is a lot of gang activity. So Surrey Detachment itself has a gang unit, and then CFSU is a provincial gang unit. So it's combined forces. So it's my team, for example. I was in a plainclothes team, an investigative team, and we were made up of municipal and mounted members from all over the Lower Mainland. So it's about 50-50. We have, Abbotsford, Delta, we have all these municipal detachments. They all share resources onto these gang teams. So I, as a Mountie, I went there and I was put onto investigation team, and just incredible work that goes on there. There's many investigation teams that specialize in all different areas, and they do unbelievable work at sort of a larger level. Most of what they do is called a JFO, or a joint force operation. So we combine, if there's a gang problem in Surrey, we'll go to Surrey or Vancouver or wherever those trends are following and investigate sort of the higher level, bigger level crimes. We work a lot with our homicide investigation team because obviously those two things go hand in hand.
Yep.
Yeah, just unbelievable work going on by those units. And it's such a huge part of the crime that goes on in the Lower Mainland that it was really cool to go. It's like a well-oiled machine. I went up there not quite knowing what to expect. And I had incredible bosses, did incredible work in the units there. And there's just so much going on. And it's just such a high level that a lot of we don't really know or realize how much of it's going on. But yeah, it fuels a lot of the crime, and certainly in the Lower Mainland. I know other places as well. So it's a lot going on behind the scenes that we don't always know about. But those teams do incredible work, and it was an incredible experience getting to work there before I left the RCMP.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hey guys, wanted to pop on here before we got into this next episode and let you know about a couple new rad ideas that we have for the podcast. So the first one is we have a survey up, and I would love to know what you guys think about the show. I'd love your feedback. I'd love your ideas for the next season, and I'd just love to know what you like and what you dislike about the podcast. And I'm going to sweeten the deal with a $50 gift card randomly drawn from everybody that completes the survey. The survey is going to be in the show notes of all of our shows, so no matter what time you start listening to the podcast at, you'll get a chance to win that gift certificate. The second thing that we're bringing in now is the ability for you guys to leave us a voicemail. You guys can actually call into the show, leave us a voicemail, let us know what you think about the show. If you have a funny story you'd like to share from your time as a first responder, I would love those and showcase those on the show as well. So make sure you guys check out that voicemail feature. It's going to be in the show notes, and check out the survey. Make sure you get that chance to win that gift certificate. Yeah, I one of our recent guests, Rebecca, is a security intelligence officer with the Edmonton Remand Center, and she was saying she was liaising a lot with probably this team because a lot of the same players go from Vancouver to Edmonton to Calgary back,
Yeah.
right? There's kind of that triangle of movement of drugs and people and things like that. And she was just saying, yeah, like how much we can learn from the work that you guys are doing, because Edmonton is getting there, right? Edmonton is where Vancouver was, say, 15 years ago, or Lower Mainland was 15 years ago, 20 years ago, right? Now it's starting to ramp up. And so she's like, talking to these guys and girls that are working over here, she's like, hopefully we can mitigate some of the damage, because we can learn what did they do that stopped this or was able to shut this, say this bracket down or this thing. So I love to hear that, there is that high level work, because I think a lot of times we get focused on, what again, we're talking frontline policing. What can I do on the front lines to help, mitigate this? Well, you can arrest the drug dealers, but they're just going to cycle through, and it's just going to, like there, you can only do so much at the low levels. It's really the high level where you need to be shutting that stuff down or getting information about it, so we can at least read the play before it plays out, right? And have a little bit of damage control going on. So that's really interesting. I'm really kind of happy to hear that that's a joint force. I do have another question too. So you're saying like Surrey Police and RCMP are literally like across the road from each other. So how do you have two police forces in the same city?
So we are in the midst of a policing transition. So
Okay.
the RCMP has been the police of jurisdiction at Surrey Detachment here for, as long as I know. I can't tell you the exact year. A few years ago, the municipality made the decision to move to a municipal police force. So just like Edmonton Police, Calgary Police.
Mm-hmm.
So we are transitioning away from the RCMP to do the city policing. So the RCMP still have a headquarters that's in Surrey, where our federal and provincial units you work out of. That will remain here, but the front level policing the city is transitioning from the RCMP to the Surrey Police Service. So we are right now working hand in hand to do that. Our front line's about 50-50. We have SPS and RCMP, and we're in the midst of a transition. Yeah. So normally you wouldn't be able to have two police agencies working the same, but we're in a kind of a very weird, unprecedented spot where we are working to do both. And we are moving members to make it work.
Yeah, well, and Grand Prairie is going through the same thing right now as well, because they exactly the same thing, voted in to have a municipal police force. And so that's exactly, RCMP are still operating in Grand Prairie, while Grand Prairie Police builds up its ranks and starts to get officers and experienced officers in on the ground. So is there a possibility then that the RCMP members could, if they choose to, transfer over, or I guess not transfer over, but apply into Surrey Police if they, they like the area and their families are there and things like that? Yeah, okay.
You bet. I think I always remind we're in a weird spot. It's not always easy, for sure. I always remind everybody, we all want the same thing. We all want to police this city. And a lot of us have our hearts in the city or have dedicated a lot to this city. So yeah, we have certainly seen that. Right now we have SPS, Surrey Police has members from over 20 different agencies throughout the country. So we are growing in size. I think when we get to full strength, we'll be about 900 sworn police officers plus our civilian staff. So this transition is a big one, and I think it's setting the stage for a lot of cities like Grand Prairie and other cities throughout the country. Yeah, it's kind of an uncharted territory, but we're doing it. And I think that I know I had great experiences in Mountie, but ultimately, like, this is my city. I've lived here. I'm raising my kids here. My husband and I met here. This is the city that I want to keep safe, and I want to make sure that we can have healthy police officers, police our community to make it healthy. Because if we're not healthy, we can't do that. So I know there's a debate in some places, what's better, RCMP or SPS. I don't think one's better or one's worse. I think we always need to remind ourselves we all want the same thing. We all want to care and police our communities and do what's best for our communities. That's what we got into this for, right? So yeah, I think there's some changes coming in the face of policing. My husband's a Mountie, my sister-in-law's a Mountie. So this just was my golden opportunity to do something incredible and stay in my city and to have my dream job. Like you said, the stars aligned.
Yeah, for sure. And I like, I love that you say that, like people can have their opinions. I leave that stuff. I'm like, that is way above my pay grade. Like, I don't, you know what, have your political whatever as to what should be policing. Let's just have police. Hey, let's go for that. Let's just have law enforcement. Let's not go like the states did and start defunding and have no freaking law enforcement. Okay. Because that is a shit show. So I am A-okay. I don't care who's policing as long as there's some policing going on.
For sure.
And so the other question I was going to ask you, so then for Surrey Police, just because it's very related to what I do, are they running the POPAT or are they running the pair? They're running the POPAT. Okay, very cool. So just a little plug for Blue Line. If you're interested in applying for Surrey Police and you live in Alberta, we can run your POPAT for you. Come and see us and we'll take care of you.
You bet.
So now let's get into what you're doing now, day to day, besides just absolutely killing it, but day to day now, sergeant in charge of officer wellness. So what does that look like? What are some of the projects that you're working on?
It's a big one. So when I landed here, I think my badge number is 84 to tell you how early I was hired. So when I started, we hadn't even had, and we started at badge number, we started, we didn't start at 0 because there was a Surrey Police service way back in the day, and it had about 21 or 22 members. And so we started at a higher badge number. So yeah, I was the 60 something police officer hired here. So I was hired very early on. And honestly, when I landed, I knew from my previous experience some things I didn't want to do with our programs, but I spent a lot of my time early on reaching out to other wellness coordinators, or CISM is what we call, like a critical incident stress management, or peer support, and say like, what programs are working for you? Like, we no need to reinvent the wheel. And I knew coming here, I didn't know everything. So I was going to have to reach out. And I spent so much time reaching out to other detachments all across the country. What works? What doesn't work? What do you wish you could undo? What do you wish you could change? And that was a huge learning time for me of what I wanted our programs to look like. So we do a lot of check-ins with our members. We do peer support is one of our programs. We run the training and run the team. We also do our critical incident aftercare program, which is, we replace CISM with critical incident aftercare. It's a little bit different, but the same idea. We care for you after a critical incident or kind of our hardest days. We have the reintegration program, similar to, and we had Edmonton Police come out and run the training for us earlier in the year. And we also have our OSI dog. So his name is Ragnar. He is in all my photos, so I'm sure you've seen him. But he's our Occupational Stress Intervention dog. So he has lots of tricks that he does, but I always say his biggest superpower is that he changes the tone and the culture of our office in just an incredible way. You have police officers who have had their absolute worst day and seen some terrible things, and they often walk in the door and he's kind of just laying in the hallway waiting for somebody to pet him. And I don't know if you've ever seen a very cute yellow lab walk into a room, but everybody sort of lets out this awe, like this audible, and their demeanor changes. So I think his biggest trick is that I always equate it to taking that physical and emotional body armor off. We need our officers to walk in the door and take that physical body armor off, but we also need them once in a while to take that emotional body armor off, and we need them to have a safe place where they can do that. So that's what we're hoping to create here. Never perfect, lots of learning, but yeah, he's certainly helpful in that. There's often somebody laying on the floor in my office just petting him. I don't even turn my chair around anymore because there's usually somebody here to visit him. And so those are the main programs that we're running. We also care for our civilian staff as well. So because we're in a transition, we have some civilian staff coming over from the RCMP side. We have some that have applied here. And yeah, we're learning about all the things that all the other police departments have done, because we have so many members coming from different detachments all across Canada.
So like when you're saying, I mean, I love the fact that we're not reinventing the wheel, because there's so many things that I want to like pick apart of what you were just saying, but there is this definite shift in mentality, which I am so grateful for, of that, like, wellness is actually needed. Like, we as officers actually need to focus on our wellness. We need to be mentally well. We need to be physically well. We need to be emotionally well to do this job. Because if you are not well, you're putting yourself at risk, you're putting your partners at risk, you're putting the public at risk, right? Like, if you are not emotionally and mentally and physically well, you cannot do this job. And so the ability to, or not the ability, but the focus to bring that and to make that a priority, phenomenal. You're talking about taking off that emotional body armor. And I found, for me, and nearing the end of before I quit, I couldn't do that anymore. I couldn't take that off anymore. I was who I was. Like I remember when I first started, you would, as you're driving to work, you would put your work persona on. Okay, now I am Nikki, the correctional officer, and I'm going to have to deal with this guy. I'm going to have to, you're already running through the scenarios in your head. Like, when I get there, I'm going to da, 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 da. And then you drive home, and I had, like a 25-minute drive. So, okay, not too bad. Enough time to kind of like, and get rid of it, and then walk through the door and be okay to speak to my family and, be a normal person. But as the years went on and on and on, the armor doesn't come off as you drive home anymore. You just are that person the whole entire time, but you don't know that you're that person the whole entire time. And your family and your friends are trying to tell you that you're changing and that there's things that are different about you, but you don't listen to them because you're like, well, you guys don't know what I'm dealing with. You don't know what I saw at work today. Like, oh, it must be nice to go work in your fucking office and sit at your table, and if you saw what I saw, then you'd be the same way I am, right? And then when you leave the career and you go, oh my God, whoa, like I was not able to take that body armor off. So I love that is recognized and that there's a focus on that, because if you do see officers that can no longer remove that, and that just is starting to become their persona, hopefully we can step in sooner than we have been able to in the past, right? And we can utilize things like Ragnar or programming to help those officers. So when you're talking to other agencies, what were some of the things that they said that didn't work? Because I'm really interested in that. I feel like we've ran a lot of programs. We've, threw a bunch of money at this because officer wellness is so important, but we didn't hit the mark a lot of the times. And so I'm interested to hear what wasn't working in other agencies.
It's funny because when we do our peer support or we talk to the members who have come from other agencies, and it's not a slag to other agencies, because like I said, we're not going to get it perfect either. We've made mistakes. We're going to make mistakes. It was so common to hear that people didn't want to feel like a checkbox, because we did that, right? We saw, oh my gosh, we haven't been doing it right. What are we going to do? So we're going to give you a quick online course so we can check that we trained you, right? We're going to give you this program and we're going to check that box, or we're going to make it a CYA. We're going to cover our asses so that if you do get injured, or when you do get injured, we can say, well, we covered our asses. We taught you. And so that's not one agency in particular. That was a lot. We hear lots of people just wanting, this sounds really sad, wanting to be asked, are you okay? After
Totally.
a bad.
Yeah.
You do the thing, we did the thing. And this is the thing, talking about what you said, we train you. I'm sure you were trained to know that you were going to go in and have a really tough day. Like, that's an incredibly tough environment. Corrections is like, I always equate it to like police. At least we see some people that are held a normal conversation with throughout the day. Yeah. Corrections, that's an all day everything. So you really put on that armor and you go in. And this is the thing about a mental health injury. And this is where mental health injuries are born. Mental health injuries aren't born when we expose you to trauma. Mental health injuries are born when we call it how to fuck you up in 5 steps. But mental health injuries are born when we expose you to trauma, which in these professions, realistically, that's what it is, right? And there's no way around that. So we can't change that. But what we can change is how we love you and support you and care for you, and the tools we give you for after. So yes, you are going to have to go into a tough environment, and you are going to have to go as a police officer and see somebody on their very worst day. You're going to have to deliver bad news. You're going to have to see terrible things. I'm sorry, that's part of the job. However, what we can do to change that is we can tell you that when you end your day, or when you leave that scene, or when you come off the ward, or wherever you're stepping it back from, you have to process it. You have to acknowledge it. You got to sit in it. You got to feel the terrible feels. You got to cry. You got to laugh. You got to talk about it. You have to allow your body to process it, or it's going to sit there forever. You can process it now, or you can process it 10 years from now when you have a mental health injury. If we process them along the way, that becomes just so much better and so much easier. So we need to normalize this. We need to normalize that. I use in policing the cashier analogy a lot. We go to, say, a bank robbery, which for a police officer is a very normal, everyday sort of a thing. You go there and there's a cashier who's been robbed at gunpoint or knife point. And if you look at them, most of the time, their eyes are saucers and they are shaking and they are scared. That's how we should react to being threatened as a corrections officer, as a police officer, coming into danger when you're a firefighter. That is your body's normal reaction. That's your nervous system saying, this is no bueno. This is not good. I cannot do this anymore. Something has gone terribly wrong. So when that's your body's way of saying, wow, fight, flight, freeze, however your body's going to process it. And then as corrections officers or police officers or anybody in first, what do? We stop. We stop that shaking. We stop that emotion. We stop reacting, because at that time it's not okay, which is understandable. The problem is then you go to the next call, and then you go to the next fight, and then you go to the next thing. And then you come home and you rush home because your babysitter's called, or it's your mom's birthday, and you throw your armor in your car or in your locker, and you walk in the door and people are needing you and your mom wants to talk to you. And then you go into the next one, and then you go to sleep and you wake up and do it the next day. So where in there are we processing or taking any time to care for ourselves? So that's the change we need to make, because we can do little things to mitigate the way. We don't need everybody to go into the bad call. We can do little things along the way, but realistically, part of this job is that you're going to deal with and see hard things. So we really have to. First responder mental health rates in the most recent studies show that the injury rate for first responders is sitting at about a 35 to 40% injury. So that's something that's a diagnosable anxiety, depression, PTSD. That's not reflective of the general public. So if we keep trending the way we're trending, we're not going to have any police officers left, for one. And that's not good for our communities either, right? We need corrections. We need fire. We need all these people to be healthy. So the best analogy, like you said, when you got to put your oxygen mask on first, because you're no good to the person sitting beside you trying to put their oxygen mask on if you don't have yours on first and you can't breathe. So I think that's the big change we need to make, is even just talking about it. I know when in 2005, when I started my career, and it was probably similar to when you got into it, we didn't talk about, oh man, that was a really bad day, especially as a female member or as a female corrections officer. You weren't walking in the locker room being like, that was really upsetting. I really didn't sleep last night because that was really hard. You were like, no, I'm fine, which I call a swear word. F fine is my F swear word. You tell me you're fine, I'm going to come find you, because nobody's fine after those things. But yeah, you didn't talk about it. So I think we're not perfect yet, but we're making progress. The fact that you can come on a podcast and talk about it is progress, right? Like,
For sure.
We're talking about it.
Yeah. I just love the way you kind of summed up like a typical day for a first responder, right? Like you do the call, then you do the next call, then you leave, then you're into real life and everybody wants you and everybody needs you. And you've been working shift and nobody's seen you for 4 days. And so now it's double people that need to see you and want your time. And then you have your 6 hours of sleep if you get that, because usually you're pretty fucked up after whatever call. And then you get up and you do it again. And like you said, there is absolutely zero time to process it. And so for those that are listening that may not be in a first responder career, like, this is why we're the way we are. Just as an FYI, this is why we are the way we are. And we are working on it, but sometimes there just isn't time for us to process. And I do love that was the thing that stood out. Just ask us so that we're okay. When I was a manager, we would have staff that would go off on, we called it a GI, general illness. And it could be anything. It could be, stress related. It could be that they needed to have like knee replacement surgery, whatever. It could be their own personal stuff. Could have been something that happened at work. And the big thing that came out of that, like talking to officers, when they were like, okay, you're coming up at the end of your GI time, like you're going to be coming back. This is the shift you're going to be coming back on, et cetera, is a lot of them would say, nobody called me. Like I was on GI for 60 days and nobody called me. Like nobody from work called me. And you would kind of go like, as a manager, like, what? Like, what do you mean nobody called you? And then it's like nobody, no staff members called you, no supervisors called you. And then, my partner and I would look at each other. I was like, did you call him? I didn't call him shit. Right. Like, because you're busy running the shift but like that focus needs to be there. These are people that we're working with. They're not robots. They're not numbers. They're not just a thing in a uniform that's going, like, they're actual people. And if we would have called some of these people, hey, how'd the knee surgery go? Or hey, like that was a really tough one. I know that you're off for mental health. Like, are you okay? Do you need to talk? Then probably we would be able to have those staff back at work in a much healthier condition, or when they come back, they sure as fuck wouldn't be as bitter and twisted and hate where they work, because they would feel like somebody actually did give a shit about them, not that they were just a number in a uniform coming in and doing their time, right? So I'm really, like, again, if there's a takeaway for any staff or, any supervisors or managers that are listening to this podcast, call your staff, ask them if they're okay. Like, just do it. Just take the
Just
time.
imagine
Like,
how isolating that would feel, right? You leave and work. When we get into these professions, it's hard not to lose your identity. And exactly like you said, you don't understand what it is. So work family becomes such a huge part of your life. And it's really easy. We're connected over those things. We're connected over the bad days. We're connected over the hard files. And then all of a sudden you leave and you seem really feel really insignificant or isolated. Like it's isolating, really. It's lonely. And now you've given so much to your work and your work family, and then all of a sudden you don't hear from them anymore. Imagine how terrible that would feel. It would just feel, and regardless of and throw on top of that, if you're off with a mental health injury because it became too much and you're worried about stigma and you're worried about shame, and it was really hard for you to come forward and say, I'm not doing okay, and then you did it and then nobody spoke to you. How that's shame, right?
Yes.
That's part of your mental health injury, how to screw you up in 5 steps, right? We create an environment where you can't talk about it. We create an environment where you feel like you have to hide, and it's not comforting and it's not caring. So yeah, it would feel absolutely terrible if you didn't go off. The other thing that's really helpful too is don't call and talk about work. Don't call and say, oh, I heard you're off work. Call and say, you want to grab a coffee? Want to get some pancakes? Does your dog need to be walked? Like, if they're away from work, maybe they want to be away from work just for a full break. So be a friend, be someone who just checks, are you okay? It makes a huge difference, especially if you've gone off for a mental health injury. Or
I think I think that's why, because you're saying, you do have peer support, and we had brought in peer support at the jail, and it was a huge success, because that's the other part of it too, is sometimes the moral injury was caused by your supervisor or by your manager or by a administrator or somebody, right? You don't want that person to then be calling you, right? Like, you're like, I hate that person. I don't want him to call me and ask me if I'm okay. No, I'm not okay. I'm not okay because you are an asshole. Like, that's why I'm not okay. Right. So then the peer support coming in and it being, a peer reaching out and saying, hey, exactly like that. Let's go for a coffee. I just want to check in and see how you're doing. We're not talking about work. We're just going as peers to have a conversation and to do a check. So that kind of leads me to my next thing, because I just had this conversation yesterday with an applicant he came and ran a pair with me and was leaving an agency because it was so toxic and moving to a different agency. And so what are you seeing in relation, not at all insinuating that Surrey Police has a toxic culture or anything like that, but just, when you were reaching out to other agencies, were you hearing that is a lot of what the moral injuries are coming in, is that it's staff versus instead of it being staff versus bad guy, or like for us, it's not the inmates. A lot of the time it wasn't the inmates that were the issue. It was your coworkers that were stabbing you in the back and that were creating those moral injuries. So is that something that you're seeing?
yeah, so the thing about first responder cultures is we go and you expect inmates or bad guys to treat you terribly. You expect that. You go to work and you're like, well, what are we going to deal with today? And so you're kind of prepared for that. You can't be completely prepared, but you kind of know it's coming. You go into that and you have a little bit of that physical and that emotional body armor in. So you go and you know that, hey, it's part of the job, and you know that you might not have you might be helping somebody on their worst day, or so you kind of expect that when you go to work. What you don't expect is that when something goes terribly wrong or goes sideways, that your organization isn't going to have your back, or that your peers are going to talk about you, or that your peers aren't going to. So those hit a lot harder, right? Because you expect it from other people. When you come into your culture that you should be creating around you, you expect that when you need to come back to the office or you need to take those 60 days, that people are going to come back and they're going to care for you. So when we don't have that, it hits twice as hard, right? Because you expected the people around you. So peer support is a great example of that, because you talked about it, how by the time you left your career, people around you were picking up on things, and you
Mhm.
were, so Dr. Karen Francis, who we have come talk to some of our experienced officer classes, she does a great analogy. It's a real telltale sign if when you're driving home, all of a sudden everybody is stupid all the time, right? Like people are just, that guy's a fucking idiot. That was stupid. And you're driving through traffic and you're screaming at people. You walk in the door and your kid's backpack is on the floor in the exact same place that it's always been. But today it sends you nuclear, right? Like, get your goddamn backpack off the floor, and you're pissed off. And then you walk in and your husband's coffee cup is, heaven forbid, above the dishwasher, not in the dishwasher. And all of a sudden you are like, code 5 red rage, you're out of control over the smallest things, right?
Mhm.
So likely at work that day, your peers around you sort of noticed that you weren't at your best. Your family has probably noticed, but you may not have noticed yet. So that's what's sort of pivotal about peer support, is that I can guarantee you when you walk into the office and you're not having a good day, your peers are probably noticing it before you are. So it's
Mhm.
really important that we just try to give tips and tricks along the way to say, have that conversation. It doesn't have to be a really hard conversation. You'd be like,
Mhm.
did you sleep last night? Because I know I didn't after that call. Use of force in policing is a big one. We tend to go from 0 to 1,000 when we're not well really quickly.
Mhm.
So you're going to be out on the street with your partner, and maybe you screamed at an old lady who you probably wouldn't have screamed at yesterday, but here you are. And maybe it's your tank is full, right? Maybe your financial troubles at home and your kids aren't behaving, and now all of a sudden you're getting to this place mixed in with work where you just can't cope with the coffee cup out of place or the stupid drivers. And I mean, there's a lot of stupid drivers out there, but if you're
Yeah.
finding yourself just like exactly like you were in a place where you kind of can't come back from it,
Mhm.
that's why. So in these first responder environments, one, we have expectations that after our hard days, people are going to really care for us. So that's really important. That's where it's called organizational trauma. So we get lots of promos or who got the job that we didn't get. Those kinds of things,
Mhm.
they really, really hurt. So we have to try to make sure, and we'll never be perfect at it,
Mhm.
that we come from a place of just care. Just care
Yeah.
about what's going on with people. Hey, that I see you didn't get that promo. That probably felt friggin' terrible. Are you okay? So it's got to come from a piece of care. So that's kind of the pivot. And we I will often get phone calls or emails or messages from a boss here saying, you know what, so and so had a bad call. Plus, they're dealing with some home life stuff. Could you check in on them? And I'll look at the name, and I don't always necessarily do the check ins. I'll know somebody has a friendship with somebody and say, have you spoken to so and so lately? How did they seem to be doing? Do you think maybe you could? And then sometimes the light goes off. Oh, shoot. Actually, now that I think about it, I haven't talked to them in about a week or so and they've been off work. You're like, maybe check, but we get
Yeah.
busy and we get caught up with those things. So especially when people are off work, it's a big thing. So it's also a sign of when your toxic cultures also deal with a lot of burnout. These jobs are really hard and we're often short staffed and we don't run at where they are. Sometimes I call it the circle of life in policing, is that when things are really difficult, you kind of find the next best target and you take it out on them, and then they find the next best target, and then they find the next
Mhm.
best target, and you get into an office or a culture where everybody's sort of biting each other's heads off. And it's a good time to sort of look and say, what is it? Are we overworked? Are we doing something as a police agency or a corrections agency? Are we doing something wrong? Is there somewhere where we can step in? Could we bring in some additional training? So I think it's really important. Yeah, burnout is a really, really big one, but you have to, your people genuinely think you care for them. Otherwise, if they feel like a checkbox, and is that good for work? Do you want workers coming in? Are they productive? Are they healthy? If
Yeah.
they feel like you're just a checkbox and you're just a number or just a badge number, no, it doesn't feel good for anybody. So I think it's important to make people think that feel that like they're cared about.
I've got goosebumps. I love your vibe because it's exactly right. Like we just need to care for each other. And I mean, like across the world in general, we could just be kinder human beings. Like just be fucking nice, people. Like again, we're coming into Christmas. Don't just be nice because it's Christmas. Like just be nicer. Like everybody is stressed. Everybody has their own shit going on in their own lives. And we've gotten, I feel honestly, and I mean maybe it's just me and what I'm seeing, but like since COVID, we've gotten ruder, we've gotten more judgmental, we've gotten like bitchier, we've gotten more selfish. Like just can we just
And
fucking
social media,
stop?
right?
Oh, and social,
Everybody's
yeah. Like, can we just be kind to each other and just show that we care? And the other one that I really, and I've been, because I teach yoga, and so I've been kind of preaching this in my yoga classes the last like couple of weeks, is just like, and actually express that care, express that love, because you can say to yourself, like you just said, oh God, I haven't talked to so and so in like a week. I should really give them a call. Or like, I should really let them know that I've been thinking about them. Then we don't, and then we don't, and then we don't, and then we don't, and then we don't. And this person, meanwhile, is going for 3 weeks, hasn't heard from anybody, and is going like, well, obviously nobody gives a shit about me, right? And then continues the spiral down. Whereas if we would have taken that half second, a text, hey bud, how you doing? Miss your face, fucking smiley emoji. Boom, that person's gonna get that message, and they're gonna know, tangibly know, that somebody gives a shit about them, right? And so like, just take that time, send that quick text, fucking send a funny meme. Like, you know what? Funny memes are great. People know that you're thinking of them. Sometimes they'll make you laugh, right? But like, just show that we care for each other. I feel like that would be a huge improvement just in the world in general.
We don't use those words typically either, right? Like, hey, when was the last time you saw like two dudes in a rock and be like, hey, I really care about you? Like they're like, it's such an awkward, we just don't, we've got so far away from, but we do, because this first responder community, and this is a great, is massive. And you have a connection with all these people who are doing all these hard jobs, and we're connected in all these really neat ways. So you care about each other. You do. That's what we do. Look at a regimental funeral, or when something goes terribly wrong, or the GoFundMe's, or the care that comes when somebody's family member gets hurt. We care a lot. We really, really do. But we just need to make sure we don't wait until those really hard circumstances to express it to each other. We really do care. And I think, well, you just got to remind each other, like, if just because they're not sitting in front of you, they might need a little bit more care. That's all.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, we've talked a lot, and I am loving, like I said, I am loving the energy that you bring. I love that literally this position is made for you. Like, I can feel this coming through like the interwebs of like, you legit were born to do this job, like for sure. And so I just want to end with some rapid fire questions, because I do just love putting my guests in the hot seat. So this one I asked all of my guests, and I'm going to take you back. You can choose something that you do now, but I would like to hear maybe from the front lines from your first 13 years, because those are always the funny ones. What was your favorite food or snack when you were on shift?
I ate at Boston Pizza. I don't know if you guys have Boston Pizza there.
Yeah,
I ate at Boston because it's the only thing that's open past midnight. So now my son's favorite restaurant is Boston Pizza. And I have eaten so much Boston pizza in the last 18 years. Like every time without fail, like Boston pizza. I'm like, I don't even know. I have eaten so much Boston pizza in my policing career. Like way overdid it. There's nowhere else to eat if you want to sit down for a meal late at night, and they're always so welcoming to us, and they're really great with us here. So I've eaten at Boston Pizza more times than I care to ever imagine as a first responder, that's for sure.
That's hilarious. I do. My kids love Boston Pizza too, and we just got the kids club card, like where you get the kids meal. I was like, sign me up for those. How many can I buy? I can buy all of them. Give them all to me, because yes, I will definitely take that, and then I will buy my children food with that. So yeah, and it's true though. And you know, the other thing about Boston Pizza is it is always in small towns. So like, you can tell how big a small town is if it has a Boston Pizza, because if it has a Boston Pizza, it's a small town, but it's not a super small town, right?
And we always travel for hockey now too, so I can't get away from it, because where better to take your sports teams than to a Boston Pizza? So exactly that. Like, we're going to Merritt, cool. Boston Pizza, like all these little small towns, Boston Pizza, like it's just like,
you're like, this is where I live. That's awesome. That's good. Okay. What is a piece of advice that you would give to somebody that is kind of looking to get into a first responder career, or looking even to come into Surrey Police? Great example. You guys are hiring like crazy. You know, somebody that's looking to come and start this career.
Come into this career and make a promise to yourself that you will care for your mental and physical well-being the entire time. Don't wait until it gets too late. So we encourage our members to someday, at some point through this career, you're going to need a psychologist or a clinical counselor or somebody to help you get through some tough shit. I recommend that you find someone early on, because it might not be your very first person that you see. Get a baseline, understand what it means for you to do to be healthy and be happy and be able to contribute to your home or your relationships in a good way. And don't lose that. Don't lose yourself along the way, because we all come into this career as really caring people who want to do incredible things. And we see too many leave as sort of shells of human beings. So you can do this career. I know so much of what we talked about sounds so daunting and so negative, but you can do these careers and be really healthy if you make a vow. And there's lots of members who have done it. If you make a vow that I am going to come out of this on the other side healthy and happy, because your family deserves that, you deserve that. So go into this career eyes wide open. Don't go in saying, I'm tougher than that, I'm resilient, I don't need that, I'm better than that. Because I'm sure we all did it. At 19 years old, I thought I was going to rock and roll through this entire career with never having to take any. I assure you, unless you are the strange 1% that's not going to need it, you are at some point going to need care and support. So just come into this career knowing that nobody's invincible. None of us are. No first responder is. Nobody can go into corrections or fire at any of these jobs, ambulance, and never be impacted by it. You should be impacted because you're a good human and you care. So you should be impacted by these events. So just take care of yourself along the way.
I really love that you emphasized for your whole career and not waiting until it goes wrong to then focus on it, because that is what I did. Exactly like you. I joined when I was 22 and I was like, I'm going to save the world. I'm this big, 22-year-old. And then like the real world smacked me in the face a couple times. And I was like, oh my God, like I am not well and I need help. And I should have focused on it like from the beginning, because if I would have focused on it in the beginning, you become much more self-aware of when the changes in you start to occur. And then you can usually, if you're self-aware, you can self-regulate and kind of go, like you said, when all of a sudden everybody's stupid and this pisses you off and this pisses you off, you can go, okay, I am reading that something is wrong and I need to take a step back, right? So yeah, fantastic piece of advice. I absolutely love that. Okay, and last one, and I'm going to bring in Ragnar because just everybody loves puppies. Everybody loves puppies. What is one of the funniest things that has ever happened with that little sweet puppy?
Oh my gosh. He's endless. He's right now just chewing on his leg like it's a chicken wing. He is endless entertainment. He loves to just roll into a meeting. He's got a few quirky habits. He will. So my office is right beside where all our frontline guys come in for briefing. So he knows at 8:30 he goes to wander out in the hallway and he lays right in front of the door like a Walmart greeter, because then he knows you either have to step over him or pay him some attention in order to get by the door. He also loves to do the full sprawl, regardless of who's in the room. So we'll just be like in the middle of a meeting, and in peer support, we sit in a circle, and he'll just lay on his back and legs wide open and just show the world everything he has to offer. And he doesn't really care who's in the room. He's relaxed and he's living his best life. But he's also, so he's trained. He knows when he has his jacket on, he can't run around and be wild. Every once in a while, when I bring him in for a walk, he gets the zoomies before I have a chance to grab him and put his jacket on. So, and when he does, I can't grab him. He just so our office is a circle. So he will just go and all of a sudden you'll just hear him before I get a chance and do like a 3 solid laps. Just let out a good couple barks, 3 solid laps the other way. And I just stand there like an absolute idiot, not being able to get him from the hallway. And then he just comes back and lays in the bed and makes me look like a moron and just like nothing to see here. Just needed to get it out. So he's full-time entertainment, pretty much full-time.
That's awesome. Just like, yeah, mom, too slow. Ha ha.
Like
he runs by.
And I lunge a couple times, just like try to grab him, and then I just like an idiot. So I'm like, no, just get it out. And when you're done, you just come back and you just let me know.
So is he like with a drug dog, is he like your dog comes home with you at the end of the day, family dog, but trained for this? Okay.
Yeah. So he did 2 years of training with BC Alberta Guide Dogs, similar to Pads. He was bred into their program. He did 2 years of training, an extra 16 weeks to make him OSI specific. So kind of trying to recognize anxiety, that kind of thing. And then he did 8 weeks training here in this facility with me. And then, so technically he still belongs to the way he's sort of a leash dog, but I'm his handler. So he comes everywhere with me. He's my shadow. People always joke that they can find me in the hallway just staring at the floor because I'm always just looking around to see, because he's always walking at my ankles.
Yeah.
Always walking around staring at the floor looking. He's never far behind me. He's a little slow in the office. So when he has his jacket on, he knows he's working. He's not allowed to play. He's a little bit more docile, but he's almost 4. He'll be 4 in February. When you take the jacket off, all bets are off. He's like a playful puppy and he knows. So same thing when I go to put the jacket on, sometimes he like ducks and covers and like books it out. Like, no, a little bit more playtime. And then he like books it on me. So he certainly knows when to get me. But yeah, yeah. And he comes home with me, and the caveat was that if I was going to be his handler, he would need like a sort of a loving, caring home where he could be off work and off duty. So he certainly has that without a doubt. And my kids adore him, and yeah, he's a welcome addition for sure.
I love that. That's fantastic. Is there plans to get additional dogs or?
Well, I think we are coming to a time. So he was the first in Canada to be OSI, like inward, I call him inward facing. So that we have lots that face outward. So victim services, do child statements, kind of that kind of thing. So he was his first of his kind where he's inward facing and OSI specific to treat our members. Shortly after, Saanich got one. He's a relative of Ragnar's, and Victoria Police just got one. Ragnar's sister, her name is Daisy. So I think you are going to come to a time where honestly, you see them everywhere. I know.
Good.
Yeah. Honestly, I know other wellness units are getting them. Yeah, they're just a game changer, and he's got such great training that even for people who don't particularly love dogs, he doesn't come up to you and seek attention or bother you if he doesn't. So when we're in a meeting, he'll just lay there. But so even if you're not a real dog lover, he still kind of warms you over because he's not in your face. He's not barking. He's not yapping. He's just there when you need him. And if you don't need him, you can take him or leave him. So I think we're going to get to a time where, yeah, you see them absolutely everywhere.
That's awesome. And as you're saying that, I'm like, you know what? Yeah. Cause and my friend Erin is the drug dog handler for the jail. And when she would bring her old dog Miley in or her new dog Zoe in to the units, you see the immediate demeanor change. I mean, obviously the inmates are shitting pants because the drug dog's coming in, but
they have a demeanor change too, different demeanor change. But
the staff are like, and whatever was pissing them off earlier, whatever they did, now their dog's there and they're playing and they're throwing the Kong and they're happier too. And that's not even a dog that's trained for that. This dog is coming in to sniff for drugs, but so I think that's fantastic. I would love to see a dog in each of the, first responder careers, a station. I mean, well, really firefighters, they had a station dog. This has been awesome. I really, really appreciate you giving up the time because, again, I know how busy you are and just doing the best work ever by keeping officers well and safe and self-aware. So thank you very, very much for sharing all your time and energy. And thank you for the work that you do. Again, I will say it again. You were meant to do this job. Like, I can see how it lights you up. I can see your passion and energy for it. And I am so honored to have been able to chat with you. So thank you. Any last words you want to give to our listeners before we sign off?
No, just thank you for this platform. I love talking about it, and I love that we have spaces where we can talk about it because we've come so far, especially I think for female first responders and people in this realm where, you've had a career, you learned some things. And so it's incredible that you're giving us a voice and a place to talk about it and a place to be comfortable about it. So I'm just thankful for that.
Awesome. Oh, I love that. That makes my heart happy. Okay. You have a wonderful rest of your day and a very Merry Christmas, and enjoy your time with your family and with your sweet little puppy.
Thank you.
Well, that's it for today, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in, listening, giving me your time, your energy, and your attention. I completely appreciate it. Make sure you check out our next episode with another badass female first responder anywhere you get your favorite podcasts, and follow us on Instagram and Facebook at bluelinefitnesstesting.com. I hope you stay safe, keep your head on a swivel, and watch your six. Well, that's it for today, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in, listening, giving me your time, your energy,